A new feature highlight video and a developer diary were just released highlighting the new road building tools for City Skylines 2. It's tempting just to watch the video, but both the video and the diary have exclusive information, so you really have to deep dive into both if you want the full picture of the new road building tools. So in this video, we're going to go through both, starting with the developer diary. Then I'll highlight a few interesting things from the trailer. And I'm really pumped about the info today because it confirms that 8 major transportation DLC mods were either partially or fully integrated into City Skylines 2. It also confirms that there were portions of 3 DLC worked into the game, 1 awesome tool from SimCity 4, a replacement for parking lot mods, and 3 new road building tools that I think are going to change the way we build roads in City Skylines forever. So let's begin by diving into the developer diary. The diary begins with an overview of some of the new road tools that are coming to the game. The first one is the grid mode. And this one seems to take a bit of inspiration from SimCity 4. And this and many of the other road building tools seem to incorporate precision engineering. Back in SimCity 4, you could pick a zoning district, drag it out, and it would create the perfect grid around that zoning district. This seems to take inspiration from that, and that allows you to create that grid, but I think it's a little better in that it allows you to create a grid without zoning in there. So I think this is going to be an absolutely essential tool, particularly if you're creating an older American city that has a lot of gridded blocks or a city that is rapidly expanding, because that often occurred on grids. The next tool is a completely new tool. It's the replace tool, and it basically allows you to upgrade components of your road. Imagine adding grassy terraces, trees to the streets, wide sidewalks, sound barriers, tram tracks, bus lanes. And I'm really happy to see the roads being implemented in this way, because rather than having a clutter of a whole bunch of different types of variations of the same road, you're able to modify one type of road. And I think that it's just much more reasonable and much more realistic. The next tool is Parallel Mode, which sounds like a modified version of the Parallel Road tool from Network Multi-Tool, and I couldn't be happier to see this in the game. Basically, this tool allows you to create 2 roads in parallel at a fixed distance that you can customize, so it's very similar to the Network Multi-Tool variant. The big difference is it appears that you got to build 2 of these roads at the same time. That said, that's not confirmed. That is just something that I'm gathering from the language in the developer diary. Then they confirm that there are 7 different road snapping options. Some of them will make it easier to build in challenging terrain. They don't really explain how that happens, but they do say that the slope steepness will be shown from a road segment. So this kind of reminds me of something you might see in Network Multi-Tool as well. With the slope tool, the information being shown, but not the ability to set the slope on the road. So we'll have to learn more about that tool in the future, but still hints at what it could be. Then the diary dives into the road building options, and there's a lot of really exciting stuff in here. First of all, you have the ability to build roads through existing roads, with the intersections being created automatically wherever the roads cross. You can see that in the first video that they released, but it's nice to see this spelled out. Next, the ability to cut and fill for roads is confirmed. And this is great because this means that you will get retention walls instead of tunnels. So when you page down and drop a road down into the ground, the first option you'll get will be retention walls and a road that dips into the hillside a bit. And then if you keep going down, you will see tunnels. Then the ability to create elevated roads on top of other roads is confirmed. And this is amazing. This is network anarchy being worked into the main game. This is something that was technically possible in vanilla games before, but not something that most people would do because of the level of difficulty. And then finally, the ability to create realistic looking highway exits with proper acceleration and deceleration lanes. This replaces 2 mods in partial. Node controller, because you can create these really nice, gentle exits. And then the intersection marking tool, which is really exciting, being able to see this in here. So I said 8 mods, but maybe this is the bonus 9th mod. Then the diary moves on to roads and intersections, and it does confirm that there are 4 categories of roads: small roads, medium roads, large roads, and highways. So this is like local roads, collectors, arterials, and highways. So 2-way roads, 1-way roads, and asymmetric roads were confirmed. Then the ability to create pedestrian-only streets is confirmed and walkable areas. So I don't know if this is districts, they don't really specify that, but they do say that pedestrian streets that function much like the Plazas and Promenades DLC, it's available in the base game. So it's really exciting to see that here. And I'm really excited to see that we can actually have some complex and really attractive pedestrian bridges now. Oftentimes in real life, pedestrian overpasses and bridges are really important to communities. It's a way for a community to express its character. So seeing that in the game makes it feel much more realistic to me. Next, the interchange building system was completely overhauled. And here's a really exciting feature. You can now take a pre-made interchange, plop it in a location, and it will automatically connect to your local roads and your highway. This is very similar to the smart intersection builder, so I'm counting that as another mod that was replaced. That mod basically had the exact same functionality, and I had it in my mods list for a long time because it was so fundamental to being able to quickly plop interchanges down. So it's very exciting for people who don't like building them. And then the ability to create roundabouts is added to the game, and it sounds pretty simple. You use this new roundabout tool, which has 4 different size roundabouts. You place it on an intersection and you have a roundabout. The lane configuration will automatically be adjusted within the roundabout to conform to the roads around it. So that removes the need to adjust things in Traffic Manager, for instance. All of that said, roundabouts are really complicated. No 2 roundabouts are the same. So I'm really interested in seeing how this works. I could see still needing to use node controller to make roundabouts absolutely perfect, assuming a new node controller is put together. Next, a new parking lot mechanic was confirmed for the game. So this keeps Cities Skylines 2 in parity with Cities Skylines 1, where parking lots and parking facilities were just added in one of the most recent updates. What's new is that now there are no pocket cars, so everyone will have an origin and a destination, and there must be parking in both sides if someone is driving. One thing I really love about this update is it sounds like every citizen is going to have a different personality in terms of what they're willing to accept when they are parking. Are they going to value their time and park as close as they can to their destination regardless of cost? Or are they going to value their money more and want to either take transit or park further away at a lower cost parking garage because they really value their money more than anything else? That is a really interesting mechanic. People are imperfect. People make irrational decisions, and this is a really great way to simulate that. And then we move on to the road maintenance mechanic, and this is one of the most exciting announcements in my opinion. The road maintenance depot is available in the base game. Previously, it was only available if you had the Snowfall DLC, and it takes more prominence in Cities Skylines 2. It keeps the roads in good condition, reducing wear and tear, but it also decreases the chance of traffic accidents. That's right, traffic accidents are a thing in Cities Skylines 2. And then in the winter, snowplows are deployed from the road maintenance depots, so you don't have to have those snow dumps anymore, or at least that's what I'm gathering from this. And that makes a ton of sense to me because that's what happens. I'm wondering if salt storage is going to be a thing, or maybe I'm diving too far in the weeds there. And then finally, there are a couple of new traffic management tools that have been added to the game. Obviously, like in Cities Skylines 1, you could add traffic lights or stop signs, but you also have the ability to add or remove crosswalks and control turn lanes as well. So these are features that were only available in Traffic Manager before, and it's great to see those added to the base game. I think this will make traffic management a lot more fun to manage in the base game and a lot more fun on the console as well. And with that, let's move over to the trailer. And with the feature highlight video, I want to focus on some of the stills in this because I think that they're really interesting. The first one is right here. We can see the pedestrian bridge over the highway. And I love that this pillar is right in the middle of the highway. That's very realistic as to how that might occur. And it's great to see that you can do this in the base game. This is something that would be almost impossible to do in Cities Skylines 1 without mods. I also love the way that the sidewalks look. They're very crisp. They don't look blobby. They look reasonable and realistic, and that is wonderful. The next image that we see is really interesting to me. First of all, I love the architecture of the buildings over here, the fact that they're changing colors. What we're seeing is a building that's pretty much ubiquitous everywhere throughout the United States, whether it's a small town or a larger city. You're going to see these sorts of 3-story buildings with the really intricate cornices and, window ACs because these are 100-year-old buildings. So it's really great to see these. I'm also noticing this. This looks like a yield or a giveaway sign, which is interesting because that wasn't mentioned at all in the developer diary. The next thing I noticed is not at all related to road building. This looks like an electrical substation, and that makes me think that maybe the power mechanic has a lot more depth than Cities Skylines 1. Is this a transmission line and we have to get to the substation so that we can distribute it to our city? Kind of appears to be that way, and I'm here for it. One thing of note in this image is this appears to be maybe a mall or some sort of very large format building. Not sure exactly what this is, but it seems like a very large building. Then we get confirmation that water pipes go underneath the road right where they belong, and I'm really excited to see this. This is straight out of one of my videos or out of the 81 Tiles 2 mod, the ability to get rid of water pipes. So they're there, but they don't really matter. But then we get to this next image, and there's 2 really interesting things here. We have water trade and sewage export. And this reminds me a lot of how in SimCity 4, there was a region and you could export to your neighbor. I used to use that all the time. You create this infrastructure that's huge and you're able to share it with your neighbor to offset the cost of all that infrastructure. So really cool mechanic. Really excited to see that here. Definitely not what they were trying to show in this image, or maybe they were, I don't know. Next, we see some interesting information about the healthcare and death care. I love to see that the crematorium availability makes sense now. So we see that there are a certain number of deaths per month and a certain handling capacity for your crematoriums. Previously, the availability was all really based upon the amount of storage in your crematorium, which didn't really make a ton of sense. And you had to keep building crematoriums, spamming them to try to get it to line up. And it really never made a ton of sense. Now it makes sense. And then a game mechanic confirmed that they weren't trying to confirm the groundwater deposits. And I think this is a really interesting mechanic because you're basically going to have to place water pumps where it makes sense. There are underground aquifers everywhere where there are water, or where there used to be water if it was all pumped out. But I'm wondering if these refill at a certain rate over time, or if they're fixed and you just have to place a water pump in the right location. It'll be really fun and interesting to see how that plays out. And then we get some hints about the road tools. So the first one is a straight road from point A to point B. The second one is a simple curve. This is like the curved road tool that was in City Skylines 1. Then we get the complex curve, and this starts to sound a lot more like the network multi-tool create curve mode. So I'm really hoping that that is what it's like. You define a start, a middle, a bend, and then another endpoint. So it's probably going to be more like a compound curve tool, but either way, it's going to be an excellent tool if you want to make really nice sweeping turns. And I'm really excited to see that one in the game. And then we have continuous. This is basically just the freeform tool, the grid tool, which I talked about a little bit earlier. And then finally the replace tool that allows you to add grassy terraces, wide sidewalks, trees, bus lanes, trams, all that stuff right into your streets. And then we get this image. I just want to point out a couple of things, again, totally unrelated to roads. First of all, we get to see this huge cemetery. Looks like it has a mausoleum in the front, huge parking space, and then a whole bunch of headstones. I like to see this. Obviously, I've talked about how cemeteries aren't great land uses, but they do exist all over the place. And seeing something that has a little bit more complexity and size to it is really great. Usually if you see a cemetery in your community, it's huge. Then we see this building, which to me looks like either a hotel or an apartment. And I see tennis courts behind it, so I'm leaning towards apartment, but I'm really interested in seeing what this is. And then we see a hospital over here, and it looks a lot like the hospitals that we got with the Plazas and Promenades DLC, so it'll be interesting to see what these actually look like in the game. Here's something really interesting. So this appears to be warehouses and a really large cargo harbor. And it makes me wonder if this is modular, like some of the other things that we've seen in the game, or if this is just one asset that's plopped. I'm inclined to say that this is modular. This is really a nice scale for this. You can see that this cargo harbor is much bigger than this interchange, as it should be. And then we get to see roundabouts, and a couple of interesting things I noticed here. First of all, I love the road marking. It looks like you'd see on a road, so I love to see that. That's also demonstrating to me that the roadway logic makes sense. When you look at the markings, they actually make sense as to what you expect to see. Then there's a couple of things that I don't love. It looks like there's parking right here. That's what I see. Maybe I'm wrong, but it looks like there's a parking space right here and right here as well. So I'm hoping that I'm wrong about that. And then the other thing is the middle of the roundabout has nothing in it. And generally, you'd like to see a tree, a rock, some flowers, anything to obstruct the view straight through. Having something in the middle of the roundabout slows people down, and that's why you do it. So I'm hoping we can add things to the center of them. So this scene is very, very interesting to me for a couple of reasons. These women right here decide to run faster because we get a yellow light and they want to cross before the traffic comes. That's amazing. Second, we've got this guy who's dressed in all gold. This is absolutely absurd and I love it. And then we have this lady going to Fight Club. She's wearing her black gloves and she's going to beat someone up. That's amazing too. This right here is our first view of the replace tool. And what you can see is we can add road maintenance depots, traffic signals, stop signs, turn arrows, crosswalks, wide sidewalks, grassy terrace, tree line terrace. And then I think for highways, lights on the highway or sound walls. The one thing I'm not seeing are those yield signs. So it makes me wonder if that's the default or what the deal is with those. This image right here is really curious to me. You see a ton of pedestrian traffic and almost no cars. I'm very curious about that. Is this occurring because there's no parking, so everyone has to walk? Or why is this the case? It seems like something is off in this image. I'm really curious to figure out what it is. And look at this view of this parking lot. So this is a base game mechanic. We get both parking lots and structured parking ramps, parking garages, whatever you want to call them. But look at all the cars in here. There's a lot of detail. They look really nice. A lot of smart cars, which I said in the last video, don't love that. A lot of mopeds and motorcycles as well, which I find to be pretty interesting. But most of the car models look really great. Looks like there's a variety of ages covered, variety of colors. Makes it really feel reasonable and realistic. And this confirms that there is more than one option. There's a second parking lot option here as well. This looks like a paid parking that you might see in a very dense urban area. Next, we get this demo of the replace tool. So this little section of road has been upgraded. Obviously, there are a couple of bugs still, but we'll forgive those. But what's interesting about this is in City Skylines 1, when you upgraded a section of road, it would center the road. So you'd end up with some really unnatural looking highways. But right here, it's creating what honestly looks like a crash scene investigation site, where if you got into a crash, you could pull off and have a safe location to exchange information with the person that you got into an accident with. And then you have the ability to connect on to the end of this and create a ramp, turning this into a deceleration lane, and they look amazing. Just for a quick second, I want to pick on this trailer, and I just want to point out, on Myrtle Highway, which I love the name, we've got a whole bunch of people deciding to walk. I don't know what they're doing, but everyone's walking in the middle of what appears to be a 5-lane highway. They're all just walking in the middle of it. And then the last thing of note here that I found really interesting is it appears we have fuel tankers here, which makes me wonder if we have diesel trains. We are seeing that these fuel tankers are placed on the side of an electrified train line, but still you wouldn't see this unless you were fueling up the train. So it's exciting to see that here. We've also got a little maintenance shed. So that seems like it's a part of the new mechanic surrounding cargo. So a very, very welcome addition to the game. With that, let's move on to my final thoughts. My general thoughts are that the new road tools look amazing. It looks like we're going to be able to create some of the most realistic roadway networks that we've ever created in City Skylines, and I'm really excited about it. And it seems like you're going to be able to do this regardless of what platform you're playing on, which is incredibly exciting. And if the base game is this good, just imagine how mods are going to elevate things. All of that said, I'd be remiss if I didn't point out the elephant in the room. There is no cycling infrastructure in the base game, and that to me is a weird omission. I personally would have rather seen bikes added to the base game rather than trams, because almost every city has some sort of cycling infrastructure. I've been in communities with 500 people that have bike lanes, and I've been in cities with 2 million people that don't have trams. All that said, it's great to see so many of the DLCs making their way into the base game. Maybe I'll forgive this one and let it through. It's just something that is very obvious. It's also very obvious to see how this will be implemented. It'll obviously be implemented through the replace tool. You'll be able to add bike lanes just like you can any other sort of lane. All of that said, I'm really excited. The tools look amazing and I can't wait to play. And I really hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did, please consider hitting the like button. If you're not subscribed to the channel, please consider doing so. This video is not in replacement of my Tuesday video. We're gonna have a series of these Monday videos where we deep dive into developer diaries as they come out for the next number of weeks. Here's actually all of the different diaries that are coming out. And we've got some really interesting topics coming up. So again, I want to thank you for joining me, and I really can't wait to see you in the next one, which will be tomorrow. Thank you so much. Take care. Bye-bye.